Welcome back. I lied. I said it was the last part in the last video, and I assumed that my design was good. I thought this would all be the things that would be worthwhile to show you. However, then I showed it to the team, and guess what? The team had some feedback. And to be honest with you, after looking at the feedback, I had to admit they were right. So the application that we built, we can search for keywords and click the search button. Great. However, most of the times you want to enter a keyword. I always write basketball with double T, don't ask me why, and press enter, right? You don't want to go use the mouse and click search. You want to be able to type in and press enter. And this tiny little addition will make a whole lot of difference for your user experience of an application. And with TMS WEB Core, we can add it really, really easily. But, and this is actually the reason why I should have added the input control here on the designer, because in order to do that, I have two options now, and I will show them in detail. So because we need an event on the input control, I would have to hook up an event to the input control. Obviously, I could do that when I initialize my form. I could go ahead and say HTML element, TJS HTML element. And I'm going to not fully implement this because it's not going to look beautiful or reasonable anymore. And then I'm going to say document get HTML element by ID and txt keyword. And at this point, element, I could say on and change and implement a handler what should happen if this changes, or I could say on, key down, key press, key up. And that's exactly what we want to do. We want to implement something if the key is pressed, and if that key is enter, then we want to search. And to do that without having the actual component is cumbersome. So what we can do, we go to the designer and we select the edit control, web edit. And then as it's already pre-configured as a form control and all of that, we have to remove that because we want to take everything from txt keywords. Now, this input control here, apologies, is tied to the HTML element. And then we can also here say txt keyword to access it in code. The downside is here, let's see, when we started, that our empty text gets overwritten with txt keyword. So we have to make sure that when we go here, that we either remove the text here. However, if you have multiple edit controls on the form, that is a little bit confusing. So keep it in there, and then in your initialization, I'm just going to add it to the form create event. I'm going to say txt keyword dot text is empty, like so. And now if we start the application, the text field is empty and it is tied to our Delphi form designer code. So now we can go here and the events are listed. So I can say on, key down, or key press, and we get a key, a character. And we can simply say if key equals 13, then begin, then we want to search. And as I think we were a little bit lazy, we only implemented the button search click. So what I'll do now is I'm going to refactor this, say begin, I'm going to say do search, like this, and do search procedure. I could have also put the extraction of the keyword in there. Oh, this is actually much, much easier now. So let's do that. So let's say do search and do if txt keyword dot text is not equal to this, or we can also say dot is empty is false. I thought at least we could do that. I guess it's not defined as a string, but as a caption. So we say equal and not equal to nothing. So the reason that the toString or the class helper or record helper doesn't work is that txt keyword.text is correctly from the VCL defined as tcaption, and the is empty helper is only defined for string. That's why it doesn't work. So we can't use it here. So do search, and then we say txt keyword.text. Beautiful. And now the do search, I hope I left it in the keyboard. I really do. Procedure do search. And then here a keyword string. Paste. Yes, I did. Here we go. The search term. We have the search term now because it's passed in by parameter. And we can leave the check in. If there we can use it again. A keyword is empty, then fetch gallery a keyword. And let's take this out here. Let's always call it like so. Perfect. And now we can do here, when the enter key is pressed, do search, txt keyword text. Of course, you could argue I could put the txt keyword text into the do search. This way you can search for different things from the page if you wanted to. So there's pro and cons for either approach. With this, we run it, and our user guidance or user experience has been improved. So I type baseball, enter, and it's getting searched. One minor nuisance, of course, we should reset this. So let's do that as well. So when the key is pressed and we do a search, we can put that right here. So it works also when we click the button right here in do search. We say txt keyword text is empty, which doesn't make any sense. See, this is where you can run yourself in a corner if you pass it as a parameter. So we do here txt keyword text is empty, and we do the same here. So there's definitely an argument here that you could say, Holger, you should not pass txt keyword text to do search. You should use txt keyword text in do search and not pass it as a parameter. So as said, you can argue which is the better approach. This is the one I picked. The source code is available, so you can change it if you want to. So baseball, enter, boom, and football. Great. So that works now much, much easier by just pressing the enter key. Second, we're going to look at deployment, because the feedback that I also got is nice. But Holger, how can we show this to a group of people what our progress of development is? I'm not looking for something that's like the production deployment, but how can you give me a quick access so I can look at what you've worked on so far? And I think GitHub by far offers the easiest solution for this as Delphi developers. So let me show you in a nutshell what we would do. The first step is you want to flip this over to release build, right? So you compile a release build. That's, for me, like very, very important. You don't want to give a debug build on a production server. Of course, you could do that if you want feedback from beta testers, that they have debug information, so you would stay with the debug build. I flip over to the release build and right-click here, open output path. And these are the 3 files that we need for deployment. So I right-click here, and I have these 2 menu items right here. Where do I get them? Well, pretty simple. Git Windows, that's what I looked for. Git downloading package. I downloaded Git for Windows. Either pick whatever is suitable for you, 32-bit, 64-bit, and then you can also install the Explorer extensions. That will give you the Git GUI or Git Bash. I need the Git Bash. And then I can enter the command git init that initializes a new Git repository. The hidden files are shown here. That's why I see the .git, which is usually, as you can see with the transparency a little bit lower, that or higher, the transparency is higher, that this is normally hidden. And then I'm simply going to add all the files, put all files under version control, git add period. I'm going to create a commit, and first I'll name it first deploy. And this is actually a directory that you can keep. So whenever you want to redeploy in the future, you're always going to basically say, copy the new files in here. And you're going to say git add dot and git commit and then you can write a message, what has changed or whatever. So you can keep using this directory. Obviously, this is just remote now, right? And you need to get this on GitHub. So my recommendation, as always, is using Gitkraken. So you could right-click here and open with Gitkraken after installing Gitkraken on your computer. It's definitely the easier way to do it, because in Gitkraken you can add a remote and automatically create the GitHub repository. That's the recommended approach. However, I promised I'm going to show you something that does not need anything. Gitkraken is only free for public repositories as far as I know, and this is definitely not something you want to do in public. This is something you want to keep to yourself, but you want to make the website. That's going to be public. So we go here and go to GitHub. From here, I will create a new repository right here, new repository. And I'm going to name it deploy and then gallery, just like the directory. So deploy gallery is available. Example, and the description is example deployment of image gallery. I'm going to make it private. That's the key thing. Nobody will be able to see the source code or anything of it. And that's how we leave it. We create the repository. And now you get the command line if you were to create it from scratch, but we already did the git init, we did the git add, we did the commit. And the only thing missing now is that we need to add the external repository, meaning GitHub. We need to pick the branch and we need to push it to that branch. So I deselect all, just click here on the copy symbol, go back to the bash, right click and paste. And that inserts all these 3 lines. And I just have to press enter and everything will be deployed fully automatically. Good. Now I can scroll up, click on code, and the code of the project is right here. And the repository is hidden. Nobody else but you will be able to see this. Now to the deployment. It's really quick and easy. You go to settings, you go to pages, and then you say deploy from a branch. Yes, you want to keep that on deploy from branch, and you pick the branch, which is the main branch. We don't have anything else. So main, and this is important. Where is the root of the published page? So if you look here, there are only these files. You could also have a subdirectory. For example, if you were to have a project where you both have the source code as well as in a subdirectory the created application, you could do that as well. And then you could specify that directory for publication of your application. So here we keep it simple. It's the main branch and 1, 2, 3 files in the root folder. So that's what we will publish. So pages, main, root, save. And now all you can do is wait, to be honest with you. The caution here is very important because it says, like, even though your repository is private, the page, of course, is not going to be private. I mean, why would you publish a web page? So if you were to have a page that is confidential and you want to use a username and password, that would be part of your programming, right? That wouldn't be part of the deployment of the web page. So the web page would still be public on the internet. With regards to domain, we did not pick a custom domain. This is something you could do as well. You could pick a custom domain, which you would have to configure And that isn't that difficult as it seems. Here's great documentation available, and then you can use your own domain name with an SSL certificate. And that's the great thing. This page that we publish now has an SSL certificate. So this will be a nicely published page. And you wonder, I'm talking and talking, nothing happens on the page. Well, we click on page again, and it's published. It actually has been published 1 minute ago. This is the link. And I can also click on visit site. And here's our published image gallery. Here's the certificate. Connection is secure. You can also look at the certificate. It's from GitHub.io, GitHub. It's DigiCert. It expires, I would think, over a year from now. So this is really, really great to publish your web pages. Let's see if it also works. Baseball, enter. Perfect. It works. So it's really not that difficult to deploy your TMS WEB Core application if you have GitHub. And as I said, you can link it to your custom domain, so that's not a problem either. The only case where you need more than this is if you have a backend, and that backend needs a server as well, of course, like your database Xdata server, for example, needs a backend as well. However, with Stellar Data Store, for example, from TMS, Stellar DS from TMS, that is already there. So you can deploy your project this easily and use Stellar DS as your backend for a database with nothing to deploy. Otherwise, for example, if you have Xdata as your backend, as a connection to your database, you need a server where you run both your database and the Xdata web service. So this is purely for pages that use a backend that is already online. Like here, for example, the Pexels API is accessible. Or if you use something like Stellar DS, Firebase, MongoDB, you can use all these things with this kind of deployment without having to deploy anything else. The best thing, however, and let me show you that as well, because that shows you how powerful this is. Let's make a change. Let's go in here and let's go and change something in the design, for example. Let's go into the HTML and let's make the search button, if I can find it, we have that outline secondary, that make it outline primary. Let's make this outline warning, and let's make this outline danger because it's red with a heart. It might be looking kind of cute. That run this locally. Again, we deploy the release version, obfuscated. And at first sight, you think, wow, Holger didn't work. Well, I told you the cache can be a pain in the butt. So you have to clear your cache, and boom, your web design is here. And it looks kind of funny with a blue button, yellow button, red button, but you get the drift. So it still works. Popular, curated, and I don't know, soccer. Let's see if my hometown is in here. Not with what I thought it would be. How about this one? Ah, see, Dortmund is in there. Of course it is. And this change we want to deploy, because if we go back to our deployed page, this still look like it did before. The buttons don't have any particular color. So now we go back to Delphi, we save the project, and we change the deployment files. So the files already changed, and at this point I can simply say git status, for example, and it tells me that this file has changed. The HTML has changed. Our programming really hasn't changed. It's just the web design that we changed. So we can say git add period, or just the file. I'm going to say git add period, git commit, and the message changed button colors, and then git push to push it to GitHub. Perfect. And with that, we go back here. We go quickly to GitHub Pages. And maybe we're still lucky that we can see it. It's pretty quick. So here you see it's pending right now. There's a yellow button. And now this file changed. You see that this HTML file just changed now. And we have 2 commits. One commit is first deployed, change button colors. And now if I go back to code, it's still pending. If I click here, we see that the publication has started, which means it's GitHub now automatically, because there was a change, is redeploying our page with 0 work. So if we go to the actions, see, you can even follow the process that this is in progress. Now it's done. So if we go to our page again, right here, and update it, like here, we again see nothing. So we have to update the cache. And voila, the page has been completely deployed. You just gotta love the ease and comfort of GitHub of deployment. And if you're already versioning your TMS WEB Core sources, I wanted to make one more addition. I directly created my Git repository in the release folder to keep things simple. But usually you could also do a release directory for your files, copy the files over there, and then create the Git repository in that one. However, that would take away the comfort that you just recompile your application, update the Git repository. However, under normal circumstances, hopefully this whole project would be under version control, so you would not be able to create a separate Git repository here. What you could do then is that you have your version files, and then you change the output directory for your release compilation and add that release directory to your GitHub repository, and then don't publish the page on GitHub right here. You don't, if you go to the settings and pages, you basically don't go to root, you go to the directory that contains, for example, they suggest docs here, because this is used for documentation quite a lot, that you pick that directory for deployment. This is very, very powerful. This is way more powerful than what I've been showing you. The doc here is not a coincidence, because a lot of companies use GitHub for documentation deployment, because this name here, Jekyll, is what do you call this kind of thing? I don't know. A Jekyll theme is basically where you can have different themes, a theme for your web pages. You write your page in Markdown, and everything then gets created by GitHub when the page is produced. For example, one example for such a page is Holger's code. This is completely written in Markdown. If I were to show this to you, so if we go to GitHub, github.com/HolgerFlick, and then it's Holger's code right here. That's the repository. You usually don't see this repository because it's private, but here is the description. It's using mkdocs, and I have in my actions right here, I think. Oh, sorry, this is where you can see how the changes that I made and the publication. But if I look at the code, there's like a GitHub workflow, and in there is a deploy file, and that shows the actions that are being taken when my web page is changing. So if there is a change inside of my repository, this script, which is a special format, which is the YAML format from GitHub, is being executed, and that more or less sets up Linux in memory, and Ubuntu Linux, and these commands are being executed, and it produces, this is the crazy thing, it produces a new branch. And if we look here, Holger's code, I have this GitHub Pages branch, and if I go into this branch, this is actually the website as it appears to you on the web server. So this is actually the page that is being published to the outside world automatically with GitHub. So if you go to Holger's code, this is actually the page that is being shown. So all my markdown and all the things that I had is actually here. If we go to the blog, then 2024, blog post number 2, we get, I think we get here, if we go to this one, Delphi HTML files. And if I go to my actual repository, main, and then go to docs, blog, posts, see there's no word of 2024, but here if I go to the same post, birthday 24, this is all written in Markdown. And the actual post appears after publication in HTML. So GitHub Pages, very, very powerful. And it's really a good means to publish your TMS WEB Core applications on the web. I have a separate video about this, but I still wanted to show this for this particular example because we've got this wonderful image library or image gallery, and it's great if you're able to publish these things on the web so you can show friends and family. So with that, I think this is really all I could show about this example. Again, maybe there will be feedback, I don't know. So with that in mind, thank you so much for your interest and take care. See you soon.